What's up? Say, aren't you excited for the Nintendo Switch 2? God, does Mario Kart World ever look like fun, and a true step forward for the Mario Kart series. And boy, does Donkey Kong Bonanza look like a beautiful game. And they got Cyberpunk 2077 and Elden Ring running on this thing. And I mean, oh god, screw this console, screw this console.
The Nintendo Switch 2, the 8th layer of hell. At least apparently it is according to current internet buzz. Ever since the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct back on April 2nd, we've been constantly fed more and more pieces of information and rumors throughout social media. Some of it true, and some of it came to me in a dream. So, it's time to collect my paycheck from Nintendo of America and defend this console. Let's discuss a lot of the controversies regarding the Nintendo Switch 2 and see if they are defensible or not. Don't show my superiors at Nintendo the parts where I complain though. I actually don't get the problem with the console's price itself. The $450 price point, while yes, a bit on the higher end, is kind of what I expected, to be honest. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is quite a bit more expensive than the original Switch, and could prohibit some lower income families from buying the Switch 2, which is always unfortunate. However, it sadly seems to be the kind of pricing we have to expect from modern day consoles. Especially since the Switch 2 is still a fair bit cheaper than its competition. The PlayStation 5, at least the real one, is still priced at $500 just for the console itself, and it's not portable, so it doesn't need to contain a high-resolution screen, nor any other accessories except for the DualSense controller. Meanwhile, the Switch 2 base system is $50 cheaper, can be played portably with a great screen, and has a fair bit of nifty features crammed in, such as the Joy-Con 2 mouse. Hell, even for the same price as the base PS5 console, you can get the Mario Kart World bundle, which is a stellar deal. And also, with the current tariff issue affecting the US as well, and with Nintendo already selling the console at a loss due to this fact, I think the price of the console itself is more than fair. The Switch 2 is powerful enough to bring back the good old now you're playing with power ads from the Super Nintendo days. I rest my case. Seriously though, the Switch 2 is set to be a massive leap in technical specs, inside and outside, compared to the original Switch. To be fair, this is the original Switch though. Let's start on the outside and work our way inside. First of all, I love the design of the Nintendo Switch 2. In fact, I actually like it more than the original Switch, which may seem like a sin to some. I don't know, I just think that they made the console feel, well, more like a real console by making its color more uniform, while also keeping some color inside the Joy-Con 2's analog sticks and the magnetic clip that hangs off of the Joy-Con 2's, which is a neat touch. That being said though, I definitely hope that we'll get more colors in the future than the default ones, but I think we will see it in due time. Additionally, the screen is almost entirely perfect now. It's almost 8 inches, Full HD 1080p, supports variable refresh rate, which by the way is great for making games that dip in frame rate feel smoother, and can go up to 120 FPS or 120 Hz, which is truly far more than I expected out of portable mode for this console. Its only flaw in my book is that it's not an OLED screen. That would have been perfect. However, it seems like the LED technology used in the Switch 2 is still superior compared to the Switch 1, at least as stated for people who've tried out the system. Additionally, this will help keep the console's price down, so I can live with this.
I also live with this!
What they did bring over from the Switch OLED model though is a real kickstand. The kickstand on the Switch 2 looks vastly superior to the original Switch, and actually makes me want to use it in tabletop mode. On my Switch 1, my kickstand actually completely broke off one day, as it is so flimsy, and I haven't found it since, so I just have my SD card peeking out. This seems to be remedied here, which I love. I am also super excited about the main headlining feature of the Joy-Con 2s, the inbuilt mouse support in both cons. I grew up as a PC gamer. Why yes, I am a depressed SimCity fan. With that history, I am quite used to mouse controls in various games, such as shooters. I am excited to finally see a console that's taking this kind of playstyle more seriously. Sure, the PS5 and Xbox Series X have keyboard and mouse support, but do they though? I am interested to see how comfortable it'll be though. Hopefully the Joy-Con 2s will have a bit more of a comfortable feel compared to the Joy-Con 1s to facilitate this new mouse support, but yeah, these are Joy-Cons after all. Either way, I am hyped to at least try playing games like Cyberpunk 2077 with these mouse controls. The Switch 2 dock itself also seems to be vastly improved as well. It's far more sleeker, and looks like they actually put more than 5 cents in an IOU into it. My Switch 1 dock is in constant pain at this point, as the thing is just too flimsy and cheap. This dock seems to address all my concerns, but we will see. And also, wow, an actual LAN port on the base system, finally catching up to the original Xbox. And also, even more wow, it'll be able to output at 4K and 60 FPS, which is absolutely insane for a Nintendo system. Hoping we can get more than YouTube and Hulu to watch content, though. The other outer features, such as the built-in microphone and the top USB-C port, are also neat additions, albeit I don't really care for them as much as some others do. There are a couple downgrades that I don't like, particularly the decently shorter battery life compared to the newer red box Switch model, which I have. However, it lines up well with the launch era Switch One's battery life, and I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. What truly matters is what's on the inside after all, and the same goes for the Switch 2. This thing is going to pack quite a punch for being only about 1.2 pounds with the Joy-Con 2s attached. Nintendo and Nvidia have swap spit once again for the Switch 2, with Nvidia developing the GPU for the system. For what we know of it so far, it seems to be somewhere around the RTX 2000 or 3000 mobile GPU series, with features such as DLSS and Nvidia G-Sync coming over from those cards, which will be huge for bigger titles like Cyberpunk 2077 and even Metroid Prime 4. Additionally, it seems to be a more powerful GPU than the AMD one found inside the Steam Deck, which is great to see, as the Steam Deck packs a hell of a punch. In fact, it actually seems to be fairly close to the PS4 Pro in terms of power, which is a crazy amount for a portable system. Unfortunately, the CPU will seemingly be weaker than the Steam Deck's, which is a shame, but the GPU will ultimately be carrying things here. The Switch 2 will also come with 12GB of RAM, which is 4GB less than the Steam Deck and PS5, but 4GB more than the PS4 and PS4 Pro, which should help out a lot with bigger titles. While I would have definitely liked to have seen 16GB of RAM on the Switch 2, I don't think it'll be the biggest deal in the world. After all, if Elden Ring can run on this thing, then we're set. Overall, I think these specs are pretty much perfect for the Switch 2. I don't really get the discourse about it being underpowered. By no means do I find this console to be underpowered, particularly as a portable system, but even as a home console itself. Having at minimum PS4 level power on the go, and potentially even PS4 Pro level power on the go, is absolutely insane to have. Imagine telling people in 2013, at the launch of the PS4, that we would get this kind of power portably just over a decade later.
Alright, it's time to bitch!
Some of these game prices blow. I'm sorry, I got nothing here. There's truly no reason why Mario Kart World needs to be $80 damn. I could buy Forza Horizon 5, a racing game with a more vast and realistic open world, and with more single player content to do in general, for a whopping $20, or 33% less, and sometimes even less on sale. And we all know Nintendo is scared of sales after all. Don't get me wrong, I am very excited for Mario Kart World, as I said earlier. This game looks like a ton of fun and a big step forward for Mario Kart, but it is not worth $80. The Mario Kart World bundle is the only way I could justify buying this game, not even gonna lie. It's only an extra $50 versus the base console by itself. I'm losing money, not spending money. The only major flaw with this bundle is that you just get a download code in the box for Mario Kart World, which sucks, because I love physical games, but I can't justify the extra $30 just to have a game card. And I also can't justify that the bundle will only be around for a few months. Come on, man! Guess y'all will have to pay the $80 if you don't buy near launch. Great. Also, God, please explain why Zelda GPS means I have to pay $10 more for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom now. However, there's also been a ton of misinformation going around regarding the prices of certain games, like some claiming Mario Kart World was $90 because of some physical copies in Europe selling for €90. First of all, the currencies don't convert that way, and secondly, the physical and digital games are all the same price, at least in not Europe. Sorry, Europe. Furthermore, I don't get the discourse online about Nintendo games, at least larger scale titles, not being worth as much as a AAA game from Sony or Microsoft. I'm sorry, but that's not objectively true for most people. Many of Nintendo's games are all-time classic titles, providing quality and charm that is seemingly much rarer from many other publishers. I like to see the value of games by the amount of hours I'll be able to get out of the game versus the dollar cost that I pay. For instance, sure, Splatoon 3 is $60, the horrors, but I also have over 100 hours in that game at this point. Doing the math, I've paid roughly 60 cents an hour to play this game so far. That's an incredible deal to me, considering how much I pay for Spotify Premium each month or to see one movie in the theaters. That being said...
Oh god, screw this console! Alright, it's time to bitch some more!
Game key cards, the ninth layer of hell. Okay, so let's get something straight right away. Not every physical game is a game key card. This rumor spread pretty quickly after the Switch 2 Direct, since Nintendo posted various help articles on their website in preparation for launch, and this funny little guy showed up, Nintendo Switch 2 Game Key Card Overview. Since it wasn't elaborated on whatsoever at first, Nintendo shot themselves in the foot a bit by not mentioning these type of games at all in their Direct, nor mentioning that not all physical games will release in this manner, at least until they later updated the help page to include, quote, Nintendo Switch 2 supports both regular game cards and game key cards. However, the people that were lying about the issue and spreading panic around social media are also to blame. I mean, come on, you know you guys did that for clicks. So, what are game key cards? Well, they are physical copies that contain a physical game card, but the card does not hold the game's data. Instead, it holds a digital key of sorts that will allow the system to download the game data from the eShop and then play it as long as the physical game key is inserted. Basically, it's a compromise between these digital-only physical games and a true physical game. There are actual benefits to the system.
Just like there's benefits to deforestation.
These game key cards, unlike a download code, can be used more than once, on more than one Nintendo account, and on more than one system, due to the license being tied exclusively to the physical key and not to a Nintendo account. However, these are still gross as hell from a preservation perspective. Since none of the data is stored on the game keycard itself, this still means that your physical copy is relying on an internet connection, and the digital storefront that it needs to work still being up and allowing you to download the game. This means that, eventually, these games will be worthless, which really defeats the whole point of physical games in my view. Sure, it allows me to sell or trade in or lend these games out to a friend, for now at least, but it'll still be worth less than a real physical copy that preserves the game data for eternity, and eventually become worthless. Luckily, it seems that all first-party games thus far that are releasing physically will indeed be fully on card, such as Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is great to hear. With that in mind though, I am not buying any third-party games that use these game key cards. It's just gross. Like, look at this. This game is 4 gigabytes. Why the hell is it not on the card? Some publishers just seem to be using the system to cheap out on their physical games, and I implore everyone to make sure that they don't support games that are using this crummy practice. Instead, I actually will be buying the physical copy of Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition at launch, which does contain the whole game on a card. Ultimately, we're all voting with our wallets when it comes to these games, and if you want to see things improve, make sure you do not buy into these game key cards. Alright, finally, something more positive to mention again. In an Ask the Developer post on Nintendo's official website, Takahiro Doda stated, quote, thanks to the system's performance capabilities, Nintendo eShop on Switch 2 has been improved, and runs smoothly even when displaying a large number of games. This is not only huge because, wow, the eShop might actually work on this thing, but also because Nintendo just admitted officially that the original Switch's eShop sucks ass. Even they knew! There are also other major improvements to the Nintendo eShop, such as, finally, a game recommendation system in a similar vein to Steam's Discovery page and similar systems on other consoles. And, for the demo of the feature that they showed us on the same Ask the Developer page, it seems like a pretty smooth experience actually. It factors in quite a bit of things like the genre of games you play, and if your friends play a certain game, which are all welcome additions. This might actually get me onto the eShop more to find cool things without having to bug my friends about what they're into, which is sweet. Additionally, they finally added a proper item on the sidebar for your wishlist, instead of burying it in your account settings like they did on Switch 1 for some odd reason. Additionally, with the changes that were made to the Switch 1 eShop, seemingly to coincide with the Switch 2's eShop, such as sorting games in some categories by revenue rather than sales to combat cheap shovelware appearing high on the list, I have a ton of hope for the Switch 2 eShop to be something I can actually use. Alright, I'm actually quite conflicted over this point. For ages, we have been begging Nintendo to add themes to the Nintendo Switch, and there were many rumors and concepts going around of more elaborate themes and UIs that the Switch 2 could have, and then the actual UI was revealed. They did not change very much at all. The only things I've really noticed are this interesting gradient on the selector, and the icons on the bottom of the home menu now have an actual background to sit in instead of floating in circles. I actually quite like both of these changes. I think it does look a fair bit nicer than the original Switch. Additionally, if there's one thing I've always praised about this UI, is that it has a great UX, or user experience, to it. The menus are no nonsense, you can get in and get out, and they're presented in quite a clean way. That being said, however, it is pretty saddening to see that we're once again stuck with basic white and basic black themes on the Nintendo Switch 2. I don't even really need the UI to totally change and shift around with themes like some people online seemingly want, but something like this concept I thought would be stellar. This would allow us to keep the nice UX of the Switch menus in general, while giving the home menu some much needed charm and pizzazz that I think many of us expect from Nintendo. After all, it does just feel like the opposite problem compared to the Wii U. The user experience of this menu wasn't nearly as good, but it just had the right amount of charm to it all. I love hearing the Wii's home menu music, and seeing the Miis running around on Wara Wara Plaza giving you updates and such was super neat. I do actually prefer using the Switch's UI though, so I guess that is something. Also, can they finally move folders onto the main home menu instead of hiding it in all software? I understand that the menu is meant to show the most recent games you've played, but the PlayStation 5 has similar concepts, and it handles folders right on the menu just fine. At the very least, add the groups option as a main option you can pick on the home menu or something, instead of forcing me into all software. It's not the biggest deal, but it does make what's meant to be convenient far less so. Finally, I've seen a fair bit of discourse going around about how the Switch 2 is lacking in a lot of hard-hitting titles around the launch window. The only things we're getting from Nintendo on launch day, after all, are Mario Kart World and the upgrade packs for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. However, we're also getting Donkey Kong Bonanza only about 5 weeks after launch, which is set to be incredible in my opinion, alongside getting the Switch 2 edition of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which is set to be a killer title for the system in terms of showing off what it can do, alongside Kirby Air Riders, Drag X Drive, and a few other major expansions to Switch 1 games under the Switch 2 edition moniker, all coming out this year still. Keep in mind that this is only a 6-month window for all of these releases. I think this is good enough actually, especially considering the fact the Switch 2 has backwards compatibility with the Switch 1, meaning there's still plenty to do with the Switch 2 at launch, with several first-party Switch 1 titles also getting entirely free Switch 2 upgrades to refresh them for the new generation. Plus, remember the Switch 1's first year. Back in 2017, we got a grand total of 10 games that were published by Nintendo in that whole year, and that was without any sort of backwards compatibility going on. Keep in mind that we didn't even get the NES or SNES Switch Online apps until later in 2018. While I will grant the fact that there are some legendary Switch games here, such as Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, there's also a bit of 1-2 Switch tainting this lineup also. Plus, hell, you can even play all these games already on Switch 2, as I stated before. With all that in mind, while having more cool games is always better, of course, I think that we're actually doing pretty decently with first-party titles around launch. I would definitely like to hear more from Nintendo relatively soon though about their 2026 lineup, particularly if we'll see bigger Switch 2 editions of Tomodachi Life Living the Dream and Rhythm Heaven Groove, as I am pumped to play those games myself.
So there you have it, Dougie. There's my stellar defense of the Nintendo Switch 2. I'm waiting for my payment now. Ah, perfect! Nintendo's finally giving me my payment to like this console. Let's just see what we got here. Turns out Nintendo hadn't actually given me a contract. I just pre-ordered the Switch 2 instead. Damn it.